On May 19, 2025, prosecutors in Washington County filed a criminal complaint against David Miller for multiple municipal code violations. Like Alexis Brown in our earlier case, Mr. Miller appeared in the 14A District Court for his arraignment, but the proceeding quickly veered off the rails of standard procedure. Miller, representing himself, didn't just challenge the charges, he challenged the very ground the court stood on. In this opening arraignment ambush, Miller refuses to step past the bar, claiming that he is a living soul, and not the corporate entity listed on the docket. When Judge Simpson attempts to establish identity, Miller counters with questions about maritime law and the injured party. To the untrained eye, this looks like a strategic standoff. To the court, it's a series of bad decisions. This interaction sets a grim tone for the trial, illustrating a common pro-se pitfall, the belief that magic words can bypass legal reality. After the initial friction of the arraignment, the court moves into one of the most critical phases of self-representation, the Faretta hearing. Named after the 1975 Supreme Court case Faretta v. California, this proceeding serves as a point of no return for defendants like David Miller. By law, the judge must ensure the defendant's waiver of counsel is knowing, voluntary, and intelligent. It is a somber moment where the judge essentially attempts to talk the defendant out of a potentially catastrophic mistake. In this clip, the judge warns Miller that he will be held to the same standard as a bar-certified attorney, meaning no leniency for missed deadlines or improper evidence. Miller, fueled by a misplaced confidence similar to Mr. Carson's, dismisses the warnings as intimidation tactics. He fails to realize that the court isn't trying to scare him. It's documenting his choice for the record. Once he signs that waiver, he loses his right to later claim ineffective assistance of counsel. On appeal, closing the door on his most viable safety net. As the case moves toward trial, we enter the discovery phase, the formal process where the prosecution and defense exchange evidence. For an attorney, this is a routine exchange of police reports and witness lists. For David Miller, it becomes a paperwork war. Much like Mr. Carson in our previous case, Miller grows frustrated when the court refuses to accept his affidavits of truth as valid evidence. He spends his energy demanding the prosecutor's private tax records instead of reviewing the body camera footage that will eventually be used to convict him. In this segment, the judge explains that Miller has missed the deadline to file a motion to suppress. Under the rules of criminal procedure, legal challenges must be filed within specific windows. Once they pass, the right to challenge that evidence is often forfeited. Miller's struggle highlights the technicality gap. He is so focused on the merits of his personal philosophy that he completely ignores the procedural mechanics. In a courtroom, the facts only matter if you know the rules required to get them in front of a jury. A recurring theme in self-representation is the heavy reliance on legal myths, popularized by television, and none is more prevalent than the Miranda misconception. We saw this with Alexis Brown, who believed her arrest was invalid because her rights weren't read at the moment of handcuffs. David Miller takes this a step further, arguing that the entire case must be dismissed because he wasn't Mirandized during a routine traffic stop. However, as the judge patiently explains, the Supreme Court's ruling in Miranda v. Arizona is far narrower than the public often realizes. The rule only applies to custodial interrogation, meaning you must be in police custody and being questioned about the crime. If an officer arrests you but doesn't ask a single question, they don't have to say a word about your right to remain silent. Even when a violation occurs, the remedy isn't a get out of jail free card. It simply means the prosecution cannot use your specific statements as evidence. By fixating on this silver bullet defense, Miller misses the opportunity to challenge the actual facts of the charge, leaving his defense hollow and legally toothless. As the pressure of the impending trial mounts, the gap between David Miller's expectations and the court's reality finally bridges into a contempt spiral. When legal arguments fail to move the court, pro-se litigants often resort to the only tool they have left, volume. In this climactic scene, Miller begins shouting over Judge Simpson, calling the proceeding a kangaroo court, and refusing to sit down. This behavior triggers the judge's summary contempt power, a tool used to maintain the dignity and order of the courtroom. Unlike a standard charge, direct contempt occurs in the judge's presence and can be punished immediately without a separate trial. Judge Simpson, bound by Canon 3 of the Code of Judicial Conduct, must remain impartial, but impartiality does not mean permitting chaos. By talking over the court and ignoring the gavel, Miller isn't just being difficult. He is effectively waiving his right to be heard. As the bailiffs move in, we see the ultimate cost of this strategy. When you treat the courtroom like a battlefield instead of a legal forum, you lose the very platform you were trying to use. The gavel finally falls on David Miller's case, and the result is as predictable as it is preventable. After hours of arguing about maritime jurisdictions and Miranda technicalities, the jury returns a guilty verdict in under 20 minutes. Miller's bitter lesson is one many pro-se litigants learned too late. The jury didn't convict him because they hated his philosophy. They convicted him because he never gave them a legal reason not to. He spent so much time attacking the machine of the court that he forgot to provide a defense for the actual charges. This case, much like those of Alexis Brown and Chase Carson, serves as a stark reminder that the courtroom is not a stage for protest. It is a forum of rules. Proceeding without counsel, like Assistant Defender Lauren Perne, means walking a tightrope without a net. Whether it's missing a 10-day appeal window or failing to file a proper jury demand, the law does not pause for those who don't know the steps. Ultimately, representing yourself doesn't just increase your risk of losing. It almost guarantees you'll lose without ever truly being heard.